Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Throne of Steel based on novel. So let's start. As the red figure's spear was thrust into the sky, the red and green flames immediately turned into a huge pillar of fire which directly approached the ranks of the dual-headed demon eagles in the distance. Over 100 dual-headed demon eagle produced miserable shrieks under the clans. It was too late for the demon gods to save them. This was a warrior completely clad in fire-red armor. The spear in his hand was fire-red as well as it surged with flames. His figure became rather illusory due to the heat in the surroundings, which obscured his appearance. What a powerful warrior! The 4 demon gods in the air were surprised. Although they were not afraid of an opponent like this, the warrior's cultivation still surprised them. The crystal attack was clearly a domain technique. Otherwise, how could the forbidden spell that the demon god of curses had been charging up for all this time be nullified so easily? The ox demon god Hagenti let out a great roar as his tremendous figure immediately swelled to 100 meters tall. His weapon was a huge staff which also expanded with his body. He completely protected the demon god of curses Stolas behind him. With a sweep of the huge staff, it directly shot towards the fire-red warrior. The warrior snorted coldly and thrust his spear forwards. As his body swelled immediately, the spear directly shot into the sky with a ring of fire. The ring of fire quickly revolved in the air and with a flash, he returned to the walls of the fort. He dodged Hagenti's sweep. The ring of fire exploded in the air, shooting off in all directions as blades of fire. It dealt a heavy blow to the dual-headed demon eagles once more, claiming over 100 lives. The ox demon god was furious. Using the toughness of his body, he ignored the magic from the walls. The figure of a huge ox slowly appeared behind him. The ox was completely brownish-yellow, with only a pair of white eyes. A terrifying aura immediately rose up and Hagenti's muscles began to swell as well. Covered with thick veins, his tremendous body seemed even more terrifying. The huge staff in his hand seemed to become a pillar of light, shining brightly with brownish-yellow light. Demon God Transformation. As one of the demon gods most suited for assaulting defensive structures, he unleashed his greatest strength as he fell down towards the southeastern fort. The huge staff in his hand, over 150 meters long and 10 meters wide, directly fell towards the walls. If his strike succeeded, he would probably tear open a huge gap in the walls, as well as claim countless lives. It was also at this moment that a yellow figure suddenly appeared in the sky. The yellow figure was very strange. He was bare-chested, while his skin was gray. He shone with bright yellow light. His firm muscles exhibited strength and beauty. He also wielded a staff. His bald head reflected the yellow light he shone with, while yellow flames burned in his eyes. Faced with Hagenti's terrifying strike, he used his own staff to receive the attack without any hesitation at all. It had to be mentioned that Hagenti and his size and auras were of completely different levels. Boom! There seemed to be a clap of thunder above the southeastern fort. The deafening sound made the soldiers of both sides jolt. The battle even came to a momentary standstill. A sight that shocked everyone appeared. Hagenti was actually blown 1,000 meters away. While the bald warrior was sent flying away as well, he stabilized himself in the air very quickly. Evenly matched. Heavens! A human warrior was actually evenly matched with the ox demon god Hagenti in terms of strength. That was completely unbelievable. After all, Hagenti had already undergone his demon god transformation and was in his strongest state. Even though he was not particularly skilled in battle, his physical strength was enough to rank him among the top 10 demon gods. Now that's satisfying, the bald warrior chuckled before shooting off as a flash. He sought for the battle, directly charging at Hagenti. The fire-red figure from before appeared on the battlefield once more, directly charging at the Stolas. Without a doubt, these two warriors were both war gods and they could actually match the demon god of curses and ox demon god in 1-against-1 battles. They even had a slight advantage in terms of elements. This forced Samijina, who commanded the battle from afar, to take them seriously. The southeastern fort actually possessed powerhouses like this? Samijina was rather surprised. Just like how the Temple Union understood the demons had also investigated the powerhouses of the Temple Union thoroughly. Samijina knew exactly how many ninth-step powerhouses the warrior temple possessed, but there never seemed to be fire and earth warriors as powerful as that. He could obviously tell with his cultivation that the reason why the bald warrior could match Hargenti in physical strength was because he was a domain-wielding powerhouse, and his domain should have boosted his strength. This was why he could evenly match Hargenti. Hargenti was ranked 48th and did not possess his own domain. With his cultivation at the second rank of the ninth step combined with the demon god transformation, he failed to gain an edge over his opponent. If he could not defeat his opponent once the demon god transformation had ended, then he would probably lose the upper hand. The fire warrior's battle prowess was even greater. Not only did he have a domain, he had domain techniques as well. Fire was not as effective against curses as light, but the fire on par to domain techniques was a whole other story. Under the circumstances that Stolas had to avoid his opponent from approaching him, it would be very difficult for him to defeat this fire warrior. Fortunately, nothing had happened to the monster demon god Bifrons and the dark phoenix demon god Phoenix's sides. The flood of dark fire had already descended on the walls. The abilities of the priests was demonstrated in that moment. A golden light appeared above the walls, blocking the effects of the dark fire. Yi Sanmi had lifted up his divine bow once more atop the walls as he stared at Phoenix, who was currently casting magic. Garp's instant death had left behind a great psychological pressure on Phoenix, such that he interrupted his spell and hid behind Bifrons in a flash. Only then was he at ease. Bifrons dared not to attack the city either, as his main mission was to protect Phoenix. Among the demon gods, their ranking determined their status. Although Phoenix, who ranked 37th, did not possess a domain, his status was much higher than Bifrons, who only ranked 46th. It was possible to say that Yi Sanmi alone had managed to kill a demon god and pin down 2 other demon gods, forcing Phoenix's battle prowess to decrease and preventing Bifrons from attacking the city so easily. Up until now, most of the Eternal Heroes stationed at the southeastern fort had yet to take part in the battle. They were hiding their strength. Temple head Chiyo, should we use what we've set up? An old man asked Chiyo Yonghao seriously, right after Chiyo Yonghao had cleaned up a great flock of enemies with his domain. The old man was also an eternal hero. There were another 2 people by his side. Although they were hidden by the cloaks that they wore, the pulses of the elements around them was extremely thick. No, not yet. The Fiend clan has yet to move, Chiyo Yonghao replied sternly. Now, he had completely settled down. After witnessing the strength of the Eternal Heroes, Chiyo Yonghao's confidence increased significantly. With these Eternal Heroes, would Samijina had any chance at success? As he said that, Chiyo Yonghao rose up and entered the battle. As the previous temple head of the warrior temple and the person who had comprehended the secrets of sword intent and the domain of sword intent, Chiyo Yonghao was extraordinarily deadly on the battlefield. In order to prevent further losses, Chiyo Yonghao led a group of warriors that had exceeded the 6th step and rose into the air, standing against the birdie demons and dual-headed demon eagles. The battle entered a deadlock. As the priests fended off the magic, the casualties of the humans slowly increased. Samijina glanced at the situation of the battlefield coldly. For some reason, he felt like he had missed something the entire time. Ever since the battle had begun, he had already sent in 150 troops. Although none of them formed the most powerful troops under his control, it was still almost a third of his forces. From how the situation seemed right now, it seemed to benefit them. The battle had come to a deadlock, so he believed that as long as more people entered the battle, the scales of victory would definitely tip one-sidedly. However, he was in no hurry at all. He was not particularly protective over the elite army under his command. He only cared about his own clansmen. Did the casualties of the other clans have anything to do with him? The more they died now, the more his clansmen would be able to obtain when it came to pillaging the humans. Aside from the Fiend army that amounted to 100,000 troops, most of the other soldiers that had yet to be sent into battle were from clans with demon gods. Although Samijina was the one in charge here, he still needed to look out for the other demon gods, or none of them would look good, and they decided to complain to the demon god emperor. The southeastern fort side has already begun, Long Qianyin said to Long Haochen. The two of them were in a small meeting room. Aside from them, the bright glimmer of hope was present as well. Long Haochen nodded. The information from Yu Yi is extremely accurate. To us, this is a battle that we have confidence in. Samijin has already fallen into our trap. What about the other side? Long Qianyin said, the other side's already discovered the tracks of the enemies. Probably in a day or two's time, the Hell Demon God Marbas and the Bear Demon God Veilfor will arrive at the Myriad Beasts mountain pass with their armies. The combination of the Hell Demon God and Bear Demon God is troublesome. However, while Chen Hong knew that old bastard is stingy most of the time, he does have a lot of good things hidden away. It will probably be difficult for Marbas or Veilfor to get an edge over him. Long Haochen said, there's less than 2 days left until the 3 days that the Demon God Emperor gave us is up. I think he's also paying attention to the battles there. Even if the news doesn't get to him as quickly as us, the difference in speed will be negligent. Let's leave him happy for a while. He'll probably think we don't know about the situations there and will be completely bewildered by the attacks on the southeastern fort and Myriad Beasts mountain pass. Long Qianyin sighed, it's a pity that we've used up far too many resources this time. However, as long as we can turn the tides with this war and defeat the humans, anything is worth it. I'm not worried about the southeastern fort and Myriad Beasts mountain pass. The most crucial aspect is still the Demon God Emperor. Haochen, are you really confident that you can deal with the Demon God Emperor's attacks? Long Haochen smiled, but he did not answer his grandfather. Was he really confident? Of course he had confidence, but how could he know whether he actually could before they had fought? According to Yi Xiaolei's analysis of the Demon God Emperor, he had no chance at all. Of course, that was not accounting for Hao Yue. Hao Yue was his greatest trump card. Long Haochen would not play this card unless he had completely run out of choices, because Hao Yue's appearance would definitely make the Demon God Emperor go crazy. Caia, do be careful, Long Haochen patted Caia's hands. Caia smiled, don't worry, I'll be right back. With that, she turned around and left silently. Wang Yuan smiled bitterly, if it weren't for the limited quota, I should have gone as well. I'm just too unqualified to be the temple head of the warrior temple. Long Haochen chuckled, don't say that. The final, decisive battle will happen where? What we are facing is the most terrifying force of the demons. There'll be plenty of opportunities for you to come into play. Outside the dragon-resisting mountain pass, the demon encampment. Your Majesty, Samijin has already reached the southeastern fort with his army. He has immediately launched an attack on the southeastern fort. The moon demon god Agaz reported the most recent news to the demon god Emperor. The moon demon god lay on his side on his bed and smiled indifferently. He sure is in a hurry. Though, it's not an issue that we suffer slightly larger losses. Agaz obviously understood the demon god Emperor. Your Majesty, should we increase the pressure on the dragon-resisting mountain pass? The demon god Emperor shook his head as he smiled. There's no hurry. The ones that should be in a hurry should be the humans. I want to play a game with Long Haochen. Only a slow conquest is interesting. If I don't obliterate his confidence and belief, he won't yield to me. The humans have already been building up for 6,000 years, so it's time for them to hand over a few things. Pass on my order to Samijina and Marbas. No matter what they do, they have to charge into the Temple Union as quickly as possible and attack the Holy City. Yes. Agaz answered politely, before turning around and leaving the camp quickly. Outside the Demon God Emperor's tent, Agaz frowned and thought to himself, this time, the humans really might have no chance. His Majesty is using a thorough plan. A day later, the southeastern fort. All of the walls of the southeastern fort had basically been dyed different colors by blood. There were many traces of destruction on the walls. Fortunately, the walls were still sturdy enough and protected by magic arrays. While it was covered within thousands of holes on the surface, its interior was still sturdy. The battle had already lasted a day and a night. Samijina had mobilized his demon army like a madman, sending waves after waves of attacks. He did not give the southeastern fort a single moment to catch their breaths. The army of 500,000 rotated through battle. After the attacks of the first wave ended, the second wave would immediately follow up. During the past 24 hours, apart from the slip-up which dealt a heavy blow to the demonic eye soldiers and berserk demons, the demons still seemed to possess a crushing advantage. Although they were constantly repelled by the southeastern fort, the fort suffered many losses as well, while its resistance seemed to grow weaker. If it were not for the army of knights that had charged out of the city numerous times, their losses probably would have been greater. However, the demons suffered tremendous losses as well. They did not bring any cannon fodder in their attack this time, as they were all elites. According to their data, 60,000 demons had died in battle, which only demonstrated how fierce their attacks had been. Although the humans did not suffer as great a loss as the demons, they still lost around half that number. The most that died were actually the shield warriors that possessed the strongest defense. Most of them had died when they protected the mags, summoners, and priests. The shield warriors used their shields and their lives to protect the magic users. As a result, while the 8,000 magic users did suffer some wounds, very few died in battle, only 300 at most. On such a vicious battlefield, this was nothing short of a miracle. The eyes of the mags, summoners, and priests had become bloodshot as they fought without regard for anything else. After a day and night of battle, they actually had not left the walls to rest at all despite being magic users. It was not because Jiao forbid them, but that they refused to. When they saw their partners fall in battle to protect them, all of them were furious. At least half of the 300 magic users that fell in battle had died from burning their lives in order to cast spells above what they were capable of. The powerhouses of all the temples were blinded by slaughter, constantly repelling the vicious attacks of the demons. They were basically even more insane than the berserk demons. Having reached this point, willpower and fighting spirit became much more important than strength. Corpses had already piled up below the walls like mountains. King Hell, Samijina's basically insane. Jiao stood on the walls in exhaustion and cursed. A whole day and night had passed. It was already noon on the second day, but the attacks from the demons still did not weaken at all. And Jiao could tell that the demon army had already become utterly exhausted. They probably could not even use 80% of their strength. However, despite this, Samijina still refused to let up, constantly ordering them to attack the walls. It had to be mentioned that the demon army of 500,000 had not rested ever since they began traveling. They had been fighting on the battlefield the entire time. There was not a single human commander who would order his army to fight like this, but that was exactly what Samijina did. And he had already executed 4 leaders of other clans who had objected. Apart from Garp who died first, the other dozen or so demon gods rotated through battle as well. Although they were stopped, they pinned down the forces of the southeastern fort as well. How much longer can we last with our arrangements? Jiao asked the eternal hero wrapped in a cloak beside him. The thick light element was poured into Jiao body by the eternal hero who was clearly a mage. These eternal heroes had all been sent over from the assassin temple. There shouldn't be any issues in the next 2 days. Our arrangements can last 5 days at most. If you exclude the preparation time, we still have 2 days at the very least. All right. Jiao gritted his teeth. I refuse to believe that Samijina won't fall for it after another 2 days of attacks. Even if I have to throw my life away, I have to last until then. A tremendous amount of soldiers and resources were gathered within the southeastern fort. As long as the battle of the powerhouses did not become one-sided, the battlefield would not collapse despite their defenses seemingly weakening. Samijina had now become rather anxious. It had already been a day and night, but the humans defended very stubbornly. What surprised him the most was that powerhouses from all 6 temples were actually gathered in the southeastern fort, and the southeastern fort had gained an additional 5 or 6 domain-wielding warriors, with the powerhouse wielding the divine tool bow surprising him the most. It was exactly because of the threat he posed that the demon gods on the battlefield were afraid of using their full strength. They had to maintain their vigilance against his attacks at all times. The morale of the demons began to waver. Aside from the fiend army of 100,000, the other clans had all fought in battle already and sustained losses of different degrees. Most importantly, the demon army was extremely exhausted after a day and night of fighting. The voices of discontent became louder and louder, and even the demon gods looked at Samijina with more and more displeased gazes. Even an idiot could tell what Samijina was scheming. His fiend army had managed to rest up for an entire day and night, so they were in their prime condition, but Samijina forbid them from stepping onto the battlefield, just because he was afraid that would suffer losses. If it were not for the fact that Samijina and his 4 demon kings were too powerful, the demon gods probably would have voiced their discontent already. There was a limit to patience. After Samijina, the demon god that ranked the highest was the 11th. If this continued, there was a possibility that Samijina would lose control of the situation as well. After all, he had already angered them slightly. Let's go talk to the demon god of death. A demon god finally could not stand it anymore and suddenly stood up. Out of the 16 demon gods, 12 followed his appeal, going with him to meet Samijina. Just at this moment, Samijina slowly stood up from his commander's seat and said seriously, "Pass down the orders to withdraw the troops. Send out the entire fiend army. I will personally enter the battlefield against the enemy." As he said that, a pair of huge wings slowly unfurled on his back. He looked back and glanced at the dozen demon gods making their way over coldly. Immediately, the demon gods stopped where they were. The demon army retreated like the receding tide, and the fiend army, 100,000 strong, slowly advanced. The grand fiends of the 6th step and higher all flew in the air, while those below the 6th step were either infantry or cavalry, slowly advancing towards the southeastern fort in a neat formation. Samijina had finally used his strongest army under his direct command, the Fiend clan. The perpetuating battle had caused a huge pressure on the southeastern fort. While the demons had suffered tremendous losses, the southeastern fort was the same. The powerhouses were exhausted, the warriors' performance had fallen, and the mags had used too much magic. They were currently in their weakest state. Samijina's objective was to penetrate the temple union in the shortest time possible. How could he miss such a great opportunity? As a result, he chose to launch a critical attack when the southeastern fort was the weakest and take it in one fell swoop. The strongest 100,000 out of the army of 500,000 had finally appeared on the battlefield, to end it all in a single stroke. The other demon gods did not accompany Samijina to battle. Now, even the demon gods without clans were resentful. Of course they could tell what Samijina's ambitions and objectives were. However, what could they do about it? The overall strength of the Fiend clan even surpassed the Moon Demon clan and Star Demon clan. 10,000 fiends was a terrifying force. There were 4 Fiend kings, combined with countless Fiend commanders, Fiend lords and Grand Fiends. They were skilled in both physical battle and magic, with tough bodies and intelligence that was on par to humans. With 100,000 fiends mobilized at the same time, how terrifying of a sight was that? Even the other demon gods knew that Samijina wanted to claim all the merit by taking action now, as well as take away all the items in the southeastern fort for himself. However, what could they do? Could they rebel against the demon god of death who stood among the 5 great demon gods? They could not, nor could they afford to. Even if they had an army of over 300,000, if they poured their forces together, they were not on the same page. In particular, it was impossible for the clans without demon gods to listen to their orders. There was not a demon god bold enough to serve as a leader. As a result, they could object, but they really could not revolt. The battlefield before the southeastern fort gained some momentary peace, but the atmosphere over the entire battlefield became even more pressing. Large numbers of demons retreated from the front times. As they retreated, they gradually dispersed to the left and right. This also made the hearts of the human powerhouses tighten despite only just easing up slightly. The Fiend army of 100,000 approached the southeastern fort like a flood. Under the request of Samijina, they purposefully moved slower, which led to the warriors of the southeastern fort to experiencing an even deeper impression of the tremendous pressure they faced. On the walls of the southeastern fort, a portion of them ranging across all the vocations had taken part in the Holy War 5 years ago. However, even during the Holy War back then, the demons had never launched a crazy attack like this. A crazy, constant attack that lasted for a day and night regardless of the consequences, all composed of the strongest clans and elites the demons had to offer. This was the first time the humans had witnessed something like this, the unrelenting force of the demons. Although the losses of the southeastern fort were not as great as the demons, it still came at a cost. And for some reason, the magic cannons of the fort had vanished. Although the battle prowess of the humans increased tremendously when the six vocations worked together, the enemy was just too powerful. There were 500,000 demon elites. Just how terrifying of a force was that? Most of the troops from the southeastern fort were exhausted and injured. The warriors and knights were slightly better off due to their numbers, which allowed them to rotate in and out of battle. However, the mags had been fighting continuously. Even when Qiao Yonghao ordered them to rest, they did not. They were dying from exhaustion by remaining on the walls and continuing fighting. Their magic had already run dry. Even with the replenishment from the magic crystals, they had mentally overexhausted themselves. Basically every single magic user's eyes were bloodshot. However, the battle had still yet to end. Sami Jina had no intention of recalling the troops and resting up. He planned the opposite. He had finally unleashed his own fiend army, which also formed the greatest force the demon army had to offer. Despite had already begun to appear in the eyes of many on the walls of the fort. Even though they matched the opponent in terms of number, they all knew just how powerful the fiends were. Once this army of fiends had launched a full-scale attack on the walls, they would be impossible to stop. Qiao Yonghao's gaze was piercing like hawks as he stared at the fiend army that slowly approached them. He could sense the weakness of his soldiers as well as their helplessness and despair. However, he was still teeming with fighting spirit. "Come, Sami Jina, come. I've waited for you for long enough now. Seniors, please get ready," Qiao Yonghao said to the three mags beside him politely. "Little Qiao, you're very impressive. You do live up to the title of temple head of the warrior temple." For some reason the leading mage praised Qiao Yonghao. Afterwards, the three mags turned around and left in a hurry. They vanished from the top of the walls in the blink of an eye. The knights and warriors that had collapsed on the ground from exhaustion all stood up and picked up their weapons. The mags also struggled to lift their magic staves. The spells they could use were severely limited now, but they could only hope to kill a few more enemies in the final moment. Every single person's eyes filled with determination. What was the Holy War? This was an endless battle between two races. There was no room for easing up. With how wildly the demons had launched their attacks, once they pierced the fort, they all knew how the demons would engage in slaughter. Since that was the case, they might as well battle to death. The battlefield was the best place for training any member from the six temples. Not only would their cultivations be trained, their character would be forged as well. Without any doubt, as they watched the fiend army approach them, the minds of every single person from the six temples was forged. If they could survive this battle, then they would all become true elites of the six temples. "All magic users, rest when you are," Qiao Yonghao suddenly gave a rather strange order, which surprised the mags, summoners, and priests. The enemies were right before them, so why did he make them rest? "This is an order. We have achieved certain victory," Qiao Yonghao stressed. At the same time, his gaze had already locked onto Sami Jina in the distance. All the fiends on the ground amounted to 70% of the fiend army, while the fiends above the sixth step that could fly in the air amounted to the remaining 30%. However, they did not fly particularly high. In order to increase the pressure on the southeastern fort, they all flew at an altitude of 100 to 150 meters. The fiends were a powerful clan skilled in both physical combat and magic. If their overall strength was taken into account, they were a terrifying existence only second to the devil dragons. The four fiend kings acted as the commanders of four groups broken up by location, while Sami Jina resided in the center. He showed disdain and intense killing intent on his face. Despite the setbacks with how the southeastern fort was tougher than he imagined it to be, none of it mattered anymore. Sami Jina was completely confident that the next attack could breach the southeastern fort. These people from the six temples would only become the stepping stones to his advance. He could not kill ordinary humans, but the demons definitely had no reason to show any mercy to the 6 temples. This was their greatest opportunity to weaken the humans. If they did not cripple the humans, how would the demons be able to maintain their absolute advantage over them? The fiend army drew closer and closer. 2.5 kilometers, 2 kilometers, 1.5 kilometers. Finally, the fiend army had reached 1,000 meters away from the walls. Samigina's terrifying figure was completely presented before the humans. A deathly grey gas revolved around him as the terrifying aura of death formed the huge head of a fiend in the air, as if it would bite down on the southeastern fort at any time. Even though he was the only one to appear this time, he was the terrifying existence that ranked fourth among the demon gods. Even if all the demon gods that fought earlier were combined, they could not necessarily defeat him. Samigina was confident that there was not a single human in the southeastern fort that could rival him. Samigina! At this moment, a woman's shout rang out. The voice appeared very suddenly, but it was abnormally clear. The sound waves seemed to roll in from all directions, forcing Samigina to shudder slightly. He could tell from the voice that they had not come with kind intentions. In the next moment, Samigina seemed to see the thing he feared the most. He actually flew backwards, immediately fleeing to several thousand meters away. Shock was plastered across his face. What did he see? He saw a tower that had suddenly appeared in the air, descending from the sky. The tower was translucent white. Its color was filled with a sense of nobility. As it fell, it grew larger and larger. As it shone with white light, it just happened to land on the projection of the fiend's head in the air. Everyone knew that the figure of the fiend's head was condensed from Samigina's power. However, in that moment, the head figure actually collapsed under the tower. It could not even escape from the white light, immediately turned into grey wisps of smoke and disappearing in the white light, while the scorching white light became even more blinding. The advancing fiend army seemed to experience a tremendous pressure weigh down on them. The fiends in the sky all descended towards the ground as they looked up in shock. The tower had now grown to over 300 meters tall. It gave off a vague, 7-colored haze among the white light. A divine tool. Without a doubt, it was a divine tool. However, even if it was a divine tool, it could not strike so much fear into the fiend army of 100,000. What they feared was the white light from the divine tool. The aura made the powers of darkness in each fiend surge and tremble violently. Samigina had completely lost the composure and confidence he had before. His eyes were filled with shock. It's that tower. It's that tower. If Samigina was asked who he feared the most in his entire life, he would definitely answer with the demon god emperor. That was without a doubt. However, if he was asked what object he feared the most in the world, his answer would definitely be the tower he had once faced at the dragon-resisting mountain pass, the Tower of Eternity that belonged to Longhauchen back then. Part 1 end here.